Good evening, everybody. And it's so good to see so many of you here tonight. It's the festive season, it's busy, we've all had a big year, but on behalf of Anton, thank you Anton and Rita and Shay and Jason from Kaolin, this fabulous leading porcelain supplier that we're really lucky to have in Australia now. I'd like to welcome you here this evening. These guys throw a lovely party, a great party. So we're not going to take up too much of your time, but Sam's got lots of exciting insights, and this has been an excellent collaboration that I think everyone can get on board with, and there's something to take away whether you are an architect, a designer, a builder, a stylist or a DIYer. So Sam Alawie from Zane Carter, thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit, these are all Zane's designs that are showing up here. Now, I thought that this house existed somewhere and we really want it to exist somewhere soon. It's like the 50th cover of Belle Magazine, it's virtual. So tell us a bit about the collaboration, Sam, and how you all got together. How did you get together with Taubmans, with Casabela, with Blend, with, you know, the whole thing?
It's a really interesting story. So we've worked on previous projects with Kaolin before, and we're just sitting at the table over there with Jason having a meeting.
A tea? Rita does beautiful tea ceremonies. If anybody would like to come, I'm sure she would welcome you for tea.
Yeah, and basically we sat down and Jason came with these big eyes and said, I've got an idea. Yep. And he went through the process of what the collaboration could be. And when he explained it, we said we'd definitely be part of it. So what he was explaining was there was a bit of a gap in the market with, obviously all the collaborators working together, and with architects working sort of in silos, and choosing and selecting material. But what this collaboration does is it connects all those parts together. So we've got Blend Concrete, we've got Danny from Casabela, Taubmans and Kaolin all in one. And having these conversations at the table together rather than in separation.
So you started with 5 tiles from Kaolin, and then you designed the concepts with everyone from that.
Yeah, so basically we met with everyone together and just sort of understanding how they operate their business. And the key thing for us was to sort of see what limits we had, but also what potentials we had as well. And the insight into people's business and how they manufacture things and what the benefits are, we can take that to the next level and incorporating that throughout the whole design process rather than just sort of interjecting that right at the end.
Yeah, so what's the benefit? If you're an architect, what's the benefit of choosing this palette, this cohesive palette?
So for us, people always have an assumption that architects have 100% of the time to be completely creative within the design process.
To work out all the design problems.
Yeah, and we've measured it because we love numbers, but it's about 30%. And what this collaboration does is it gives us that ability to spend more time on that process of innovating, right? Because a lot of that guesswork is taken out and a lot of that decision making is done in the beginning, we get more time to spend on actually innovating the houses. So for example, if you've seen on some of the screens, we've looked at the hallways and the entrances to rooms, and we've dressed one of the hallways in one of the Calcutta Viola marbles because we see that as an appetizer to the room that you're leading into. It's almost giving you a taste before you get in there. And as you can see, that same tile is in that bathroom, and it just creates that layering before you get in there. Because one of the key things about bathrooms that we're finding is they're in and out spaces, but we spend a lot of time and money on them.
Well, they're becoming a destination. Bathrooms are so huge. And I mean, this was happening before COVID, but after COVID, I mean, that's another space that's really important. A lot of people hid in their bathroom during COVID from the rest of their families, but it's also becoming a real wellness space.
It is.
And a really important room. And also when you're selling a house, it's another showpiece room.
It is. And the fact that, we spend time in these spaces and they're not just sort of in and out places, we want to incorporate things that create a high level of wellness. Yeah. So for example, we've used a purpose-built planter box because in 2025 we see in the trends, and we were speaking about this earlier, that biophilic design is going to be really big. Purpose-built planter boxes, key thing.
So biophilia, a tree growing out of your kitchen bench, planter boxes in the bathroom, the herb gardens in the kitchen, it's all happening, and it does make you happy.
It does. It gives you that sense just to calm down, relax, and spend time in that space without feeling like you're rushed.
So we were talking about collaborations, and in publishing, we love a good collaboration, bringing everybody together. And I think, print media, Instagram, socials, we've all connected so many people together. I think particularly in the last few years, we've really connected builders and trades with interior designers and architects a lot better than we used to. And I just feel that there's just so much potential here. In the last 4 weeks, our audience spent $1.1 billion on home and garden products. So that's a really huge figure. I mean, that may include, I was saying to Sarah here from King, that may include a hose or, you know, some something for the kitchen. But, you know, that's a big figure. So there's so much potential to collaborate.
Yeah.
So now tell me about, did everyone play nicely and nobody went off-piste in the collaboration?
Yeah, collaboration is almost like a big dinner, right? And someone brings the cheese and someone brings the drinks and someone can bring the music. And it's the architect is sort of like the host that brings all that together without having sort of, you know, interfering with anyone's personalities at the same time.
But did you lead? As the architect, were you the driver?
Well, I mean, I sort of like to understand what everyone does, and then we're the person in the corner that's making sure that the dinner party with nice mood lighting doesn't have punk rock music, pumping in the background.
It's all cohesive.
It's all cohesive, yeah. And, you know, everyone here, it's not like a uni assignment where, you know, everyone's here for the purpose of innovating and producing something that's really beautiful at the end of it. So, yeah, we've had a fantastic time with everybody.
And you were saying that Australia, you've done some research, you do a lot of research, and Australians are spending a really crazy figure now. It's certainly not what I spend at home, but 70% of their time at home. So
they do, yep, 70%.
Kind of every centimetre of the house is so important to get right. And it is a big investment. So okay, if I am, just say I am a builder or a developer, and I think a builder is a good one, because even though renovating and building is a really expensive process, it is amazing how often the decision on finishes ends up with the builder running down to choose it. I would imagine that this kind of cohesive palette would be a really great help for them.
Well, it's almost like as if it takes a lot of the guesswork out of them. You know, the way that we work with this palette is we see it as a kit of parts. But a flexible key, like almost like not set in stone, but something that you can actually pick up and just play within the color scheme and the tiles and all the furnishings, and play with all of that so that you're producing something at the end that is cohesive.
Yes.
And that's one of the key things, is that if a builder was to use this, I'd encourage them to at least have a theme for the home and reference that. A name, yeah.
So some of these houses have great names. There's Sunset.
Yep, there's a Sunset.
So it's more of an emotional response, going home for it. Your starting point was going home at sunset.
Yeah. So every product that we produce, we talk about an emotional concept.
That's not what architects normally talk about, emotional responses.
Well, the thing is, what it does is it ties in sort of feeling and emotions throughout the entire home. And it's, I mean, I always say it, these homes, every home that is produced is for people. And I know that sometimes we produce work that looks pretty, but it's got to be really emotion driven and sort of, you know, give the occupants a good use.
Now, if you're an interior designer or an architect, how do you use the tool?
So I think the colour palette is something that you can use where you would test it in certain spaces and give a sort of an understanding of, you know, what's the end result?
It's like a kit, right? You can pull in bits and pieces, and it should all work together.
Yeah. So one of the key things that we've done in this space is in the kitchen area, we've created an open plan living, and we've utilised colour in a very careful way to sort of wrap around the room and connect space. So that image there shows
almost zone.
Yeah, and it's about, you know, sort of picking up these colours and utilising them in a way where they're going to create space for you, and just testing the colours to see how they work in that space. Also with the tiles, you know, one of the key things about this collaboration is the customisation of tiles. It means that we can now do curved vanities.
We can do all of that here, customise everything. And really large scale pieces.
Exactly. So the island in the first home, the Sunset home, gives the illusion that it's starting to elevate in space, and that's just by creating mosaic pieces that are custom cut and dressed all the way around, giving it that cohesive form.
And are you planning to build this house anyway? I think we need to see this house. That would be amazing. Can someone build this?
Someone's going to put their hand up here. But look, there you go. There you go.
Danny can do it.
She's got it. So we'd love to see it built. I mean, it's built with a lot of intent to evoke a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. And it's paramount that when this is built, that you get to experience that space.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And what about, so this is only going to get bigger. So we've got some excellent brands, names involved. So you, Taubmans, Kaolin, we've got Casabela, we've got Blend Concrete. How are you looking to evolve this and make it bigger and next year?
Well, I see this. I mean, we've got a group of collaborators now. I think once this grows, you're going to get this potentially, and it's really exciting. You'll get a cross-pollination of two different companies that could produce something they've never produced before.
Yeah. And
maybe they can work on something because maybe they've never sat at the same table rather than from a distance. So I think this will be really big, and we'd be super excited to see how this would evolve with a lot more collaborators. And please invite us if you do.
Yeah, well, I think it's often when I'm reading stories in Belle or House and Garden House stories that I'm sure a lot of you in the design industry have worked on, the best projects, it's amazing, and I know it's an investment, but is when the whole team is together at the beginning.
Yeah.
So the architect, the interior designer, the builder, the trades, if you can, the landscape architect, the art curator.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a total luxury, but this kind of gives you that luxury without the having to pay the hourly rate of all those specialists.
Well, it's got everyone there, and those conversations happen nice and early on.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
It takes a lot of the guesswork out, and it's one of those things, it gives you a phenomenal experience while you're working through it that, for us, we've worked on other collaborations. This one's unique in the sense that we see the potential that it, is produced out of it at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because the spaces are so cohesive and the whole house has got a theme that works together, the more collaborators in this, it will just transfer it to a whole nother level.
It'll be so good to see the results and what people actually design from all of this. So are you designing more houses? Is there any more this year?
Well, there's none in the pipeline just yet, but next year, I mean, there's a further collaboration, and we'll see how that's positioned. So.
And will you be using some of you're doing another house?
I'm doing another house, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sam's done a few houses, so he's very well qualified, and of your own.
Thank you. Yeah, well, look, we do our own developments, but this is definitely something that we'd utilise in our own projects where it will simplify the process. It would really simplify the process because there's a lot of key decisions that have to be made, and like I mentioned at the beginning, was having that ability to innovate or even spend time on other things. It shortens that process.
And also, it allows people to be more experimental with colour if they're worried about colour. And we know, like, the whole Australian design industry has become much more adventurous and experimental with colour in the last 10, 15 years. But it's still tricky, especially if you're doing it yourself. You don't want to make a mistake when it's a big investment.
It is. It's one of the hardest things is sort of spending time to educate people on how colour works, and clients do trust you in the process, but people have to warm up the colour. And it's sort of something where they say, oh, I don't mind that colour, but I might like that a bit later on. This takes a lot of that guesswork out, showing people these spaces and also showing how it could work.
Well, it's like coming in here and there's all the setups, and you can actually see how the lifestyle pieces fit with the surfaces and all of that. You get to see the whole look, which, gives you a lot more confidence, I think.
It definitely does. I mean, we've played a lot with the colour. Yeah. And we've tested it in certain spaces, and you see how one space, it completely transforms when you use colour in it. Like, for example, the outdoor area in the alfresco, we've used the Saxby blue that Taubmans has chosen. And showing people that, I mean, they would say, I never think about doing, a blue colour in my alfresco. Yeah. But you can see how that transcends really well and elevates that space and creates that level of fun throughout it.
Definitely. And it just gives people so many more options. Yeah. And I mean, when I'm preaching to the converted here, good design and good colour really changes the way you feel and how you live in a space. And it's really important. Even if it's a small space, you can use these tools.
Well, I mean, thinking about smaller spaces, one of the spaces inside the house is a little nook where you have some quiet time, and it's wrapped in a black forest. It's connected to the room, but it's sort of disconnected enough that you can actually enjoy yourself in that space. So it's one of those things that people can just have a think about how they feel in that space, and then just try to experiment with that colour to see how they can feel in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Sam. Thank you. Now, everybody's here. So Danielle's here from Casabela, and Fiona, where's Fiona? From Taubmans. We've got everybody here and Ruben from Blend. So if you have any questions of anyone, they'll be here having a drink and some delicious food. Thank you again, Rita and Anton. And thank you everyone for coming, and enjoy the rest of the busy time of the year. And I'm sure if there's any questions, these guys can answer them.
We want a photo time.
Thank you very much, Tanya and Sam, for this conversation. Just also backstory, I think obviously I want to thank our whole collaboration team. I think to deliver such a work, it is pretty impressive, so I think we all deserve an applause. Yeah.